Hello and welcome back to Sovereign Lovestream.
Hi, everyone. Happy Sovereign Sunday. We're back.
We're back after a month-long hiatus for the holidays, and we did some traveling. So it's good to be back.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Absolutely. What a well-received or anxiously awaited New Year it's been, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that, of course. But it's a little weird to be back, actually.
It
right?
is.
after taking off for a month.
But we're happy to be here. We're happy to share all of this exciting stuff that's been going on for the past month, to kind of recap this past year that everyone was, like you said, anxiously waiting to end. For us, it turned out to be probably the best year of our lives. And
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about why it was the best year of our lives, despite a global pandemic and all sorts of wild and insane things that happened this year.
Madness and mayhem, as I like to call it. Hey, Taryn, thanks for joining us. If anybody has any comments, as always, please feel free to drop them in, and maybe we'll feature it and talk about it. We love to get audience participation. This show isn't really just about for us to just like go on and on chatting. We want to have like audience participation, so please feel free. So where should we begin?
Okay, so one of my favorite things to bring up when talking about this new year and saying goodbye to 2020 is that I'm really grateful for the fact that in 2019, Danny and I took some really huge steps in our healing process. And I don't think that 2020 would have been the year that it was for us if we hadn't done that healing work. A lot of people, when the pandemic began, the first thing they did was run out and stock up on alcohol. And it was like, oh my God, if I'm going to be locked in my house with my husband and my kids, or my wife and my kids, or my significant other, or my family, or whatever, I need tons of alcohol. And in other years, that would have been us for sure, because there were many years where I would stop at the liquor store on the way home from work and pick up a bottle of wine or a bottle of rum or whatever it is that we were in the mood to drink at that time. And I would bring it home because I needed it to de-stress. And this was...
Well, we thought we were de-stressing. What we were doing was numbing the stress so we didn't have to deal with it.
And at times creating even more stress, because a lot of stuff that wasn't being dealt with would bubble up under the influence of alcohol and would create even more stress, even more problems, and lots of chaos and mayhem.
Yeah.
So this was a great year to really put that to test, right? To test out the fact that I didn't need alcohol to get through anything. I don't think we went to the liquor store at all this year.
I mean, honestly, we barely drank. We had mimosas for New Year's brunch. And I think at some point in the summer we had like one margarita, but honestly, I've like really lost my taste for alcohol. But this isn't like an alcohol bashing session. There's nothing wrong with drinking alcohol.
It was just where we were at the time. Yeah.
For us, it was problematic because we were drinking way too much and for the wrong reasons.
So this was thanks to all of that healing work, which we've shared in previous episodes. We didn't find ourselves running towards coping mechanisms to get through what seemed like a really difficult time. We got to a point where everything that happened seemed like an area of opportunity for us, a place for us to figure out a new solution, to come up with a new way, to see what this trigger, what this issue was bringing to the surface that we hadn't fully dealt with. And for us, this was a year of overcoming obstacles in a way that became fun. I think we had a lot of fun overcoming many of the obstacles that 2020 presented.
I don't know about fun. I don't know if I describe it as fun.
I had fun.
But, well, listen, we definitely had a lot of fun this year. But the overcoming the obstacles part, I don't know if I describe it as fun, but it was still hard, but it flowed a lot better. And I think it was a lot more rewarding. I think I could appreciate, for me at least, I could appreciate the joy of overcoming much more than I had in previous years. In 2019 was a really hard year for me because I was doing really hard work dealing with a lot of traumas like that we've discussed ad nauseum on the show. But because of where I wasn't really able to appreciate the challenges, right? Or all the mayhem that was happening in my life. I wasn't really able to appreciate that those things were happening to teach me lessons. And really the truth is I was attracting that mayhem because of my emotional state and my spiritual state. So now in 2020, because I was able to, when a challenge or a problem would come up, it was much easier for me to recognize that, okay, this is trying to show me something that I need to deal with so that I can, once I overcome this, once I integrate this, it's going to flow a lot easier. And so I wasn't in as much resistance. I think that was really the big difference for me between 2019 and 2020. I was not in as much resistance. And so therefore, when a challenge popped up, I was able to work through it a lot easier. And I think this is probably for me the biggest part of my healing, and why now I could say 2020 was much more joyful for me, even though the work was still hard. And I don't know that I still am in the place yet where I would call the work fun, but there are absolutely fun aspects of the work. Like after we do the work and then it's like, the sigh of relief, the joy that it's like, oh, wow, this challenge came up. I worked through it. And now I feel so much lighter. I've released this trauma, this negative energy, however you want to describe it. And now I feel lighter and more free. So that part of it is fun for sure.
Well, maybe you'll get to the point where
I'm sure I will.
Where
and
it'll be fun. I kind of enjoy the challenges now, and and that's not to say that there are moments where the challenges aren't as frustrating or don't get upsetting. But I feel like I am in a place where I appreciate the challenges too and enjoy them. Thank you.
I do also want to mention, because you said something about you used air quotes for the the mayhem or the trauma for 2020. And we do want to recognize that 2020 has been a hard year for probably most people or a lot of people. There are people that have lost family members. My aunt passed away from COVID. And so I know a lot of my cousins are really suffering with that. And so we can appreciate that. It wasn't to say that 2020 is not really hard. People just thought it was hard. But I think what Vanessa was trying to say, and you can add to this and correct me if I'm misstating, but I think it's more about how your outlook is. For me, I lost my mom 10 years ago, and it took me a long time to face it. And I face a lot of it here on this show. So now I'm in a place where it's like, oh, my mom is in a much better place now. Like, it's not even like a religious idea necessarily. Like, oh, my mom's in heaven and she's better off. Like, I'm in a place of complete peace that she is like, she's floating in love right now. And I'm still stuck here doing all this work. And I love being here and I love being alive, and Earth is amazing. If we can keep that perspective, but at the same time, I miss her, but it's selfish of me to, I hate to say that. I don't want my cousins to feel like I'm calling them selfish for wanting their mother here. It's a totally human thing. And all of the people that were lost, it's human, and it's part of our experience to have the emotion of grief. And so I don't want to resist it and be like, oh, grief is a bad thing, or you shouldn't have grief, or you should just be partying and thankful that your loved one is now in heaven, because it's part of our experience. I think this is an important thing for us to talk about.
Yeah.
Because grief is a big part of 2020 because of the people that have been lost.
And I think it's not just because of the people that have been lost, but the idea of life that we had. I think we, as a society, we went through a collective grief process of, oh my God, life is not what I thought it was. And I think it's completely understandable. My air quotes aren't necessarily to dismiss the chaos and mayhem that occurred. I think in some ways, a lot of people took it upon themselves to take on yes, it's all terrible, even when they didn't have to go through as much suffering. Because I definitely saw many people whose lives weren't extremely disrupted or didn't really have to experience as much trauma or loss, and still kind of going into the story of, oh my God, it's all terrible.
The victim story, just repeating that meme, oh, 2020 sucks, let's get out of 2020. Instead of just appreciating the moment that you're in, the fact that you are still alive, the fact that you are still healthy.
And the fact that we got to see what things are really important this year. I think for a lot of people, it opened up the dialogue of what really matters to me right now, what's really important to me, and where do I want to put my energy, my attention, my focus? And, you know, people ended up realizing that some of their employers didn't care about them. Some people started realizing the government doesn't care about them. I mean, we woke up to a lot of harsh realities. A lot of people woke up to those harsh realities. But all in all, I guess I say it that way because I don't necessarily think the whole thing was bad.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it was bad for everybody.
Right.
And that's not to say that it's unfair, that it was bad for some people and not bad for others. That's just the way it is. You know, there are other years where it's terrible for somebody and for the rest of society, it's great. So I just don't want us to fall into this idea that it's all terrible. And I think that we have that responsibility to make the best of our lives and our experiences. And that's kind of what the show is about how to bring that responsibility into your life. A lot of us kind of tend to just flow with what society says. If society says 2020 was bad, then 2020 is terrible, even if nothing happened. You know, like we a few months ago, Xander and I were having a walk in the park. Xander is our 9-year-old, and he made a comment, and I think, you know, it's probably because sometimes he hears things on the news, he's on the internet, he hears, you know, people saying things like 2020 was such a horrible year. And he said something like, how much worse can it get? And I was like, well, what were the bad things that happened to you in 2020? And we ended up listing a bunch of great things that happened to us in 2020. And in the end, he was like, yeah, I guess 2020 wasn't bad at all. He's like, we had a really good 2020. And I was like, exactly. And I understand that as a society, a lot of things went a little crazy. And maybe, you know, like you said, you had this experience with your mom. And in the moment, we feel the tragedy and the loss of it. And it's perfectly normal to feel that way. And I think sometimes bad things happen to us, and then years later we can recognize the things that it taught us, the things that we were able to overcome as a result, the strength that we truly had, and the ways in which it helped us become better people. For you, the death of your mom became this major turning point in your life, and that's not to say that you're grateful that your mom's not here, but this tragedy turned out to be something that shifted your life in a different direction.
I would not be here with the joy and the happiness and the outlook on life that I have now if it wasn't for my mother passing, if it wasn't for the sacrifice that she made. And I think really that's the key that we found is it's all about how you look at it. You can resist and it doesn't make a difference. You can't change. The Bible says something like you can't change the number of hairs on your head. You can resist all you want. You can be angry at 2020, but you can't change anything that's happened. All you can change is your response to it. So you can either respond to it at, I hate it, and build up that grief and that anger and the frustration and hold it. You can hold it, and you can, and many people are. But what good is that doing you? First of all, it's going to reduce your health. It's gonna stress, we know, reduces your immune response. It's going to make you more susceptible to COVID. So if you're freaking out and worried about COVID and harboring all this grief and anger and frustration about 2020, it's going to make you more susceptible to COVID. That's the first thing. But also, you're just not going to enjoy your life. So you can look at those things. And I certainly had those feelings of frustration. For me, it's about like the thing that really triggers me, government response. worried about mandatory vaccines coming down the pike, mandatory vaccine passports. And we went to Hawaii, and I was like so aggravated about having to get tested and then having to upload my test results and TSA and the whole thing. Really, all of that really triggers me. And I do very much feel the like frustration build up in my chest. But the difference is now is that I feel it. I get wound up about it. And then I breathe through it. And I realize that I can't change. I can't change what TSA is doing. I can't change that. So I could either say, well, I'm not going anywhere because I'm not taking a COVID test. Mm-hmm. Or I could just accept the fact that, all right, unfortunately, I don't want to do this, but I'd rather go to Hawaii than not take the test. And I think we need to make those kind of evaluations. And it's up to everybody's personal choice. So if you decide you'd rather not travel or only travel by car, then that's your decision, and I support that fully. I don't want to make it seem like we have to give in to things if otherwise we don't really want it, right? If I don't want to take the test to go to Hawaii, then do I really want to go to Hawaii? No, it's not about that. And I completely understand the anger and the frustration. And that's not to say that we don't voice our disagreement. It's not to say that we just ignore what's happening out there. Danny's really great at informing people and letting people know the changes that are happening out there. The more people that are informed, the easier it is to say, we're opting out of this mandate or this thing that's being trying to be forced upon us. Yeah. So I think that, like Russell's saying, perception and perspective are life-changing. And for me, that's what I've experienced over the last couple of years. So now, and like I said, it's not like I don't get triggered. I got triggered a lot on this trip to Hawaii by those things that I mentioned. But I can recover a lot more quickly, and I don't let it steal my joy. That's really what it is. Don't let the government steal your joy. Don't let a virus steal your joy, right? Yes, grief for those that that have been lost, but don't allow that grief to consume you. To where you can't function and you can no longer be happy or experience joy. There'll always be a grieving period, but just don't allow it to overwhelm you, I think, is really the important thing.
And the fear of things getting worse. There are a lot of people that are afraid of things getting worse and that are already allowing that to take over their lives. And like Danny said, it's allowing them to take your joy without them even having to pass any laws yet, or without them putting those laws into practice yet. A lot of people are already freaking out and giving up their joy and their desire to live life. I mean, we're living life. If tomorrow they decide to, I don't know, just annihilate all of us, we'll have lived our lives to the fullest up until that point.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to give up living your life beforehand because of the expectation of something terrible happening.
And honestly, my perspective now at this point with government and all these tyrannical mandates that they're trying to impose, I don't think they have the support. I see enough people. So many people woke up during this pandemic. To me, that makes the whole thing worth it. All of this frustration has caused people to realize government doesn't care about you. This whole thing with the $600 versus $2,000 stimulus package. I saw a lot of people who are leftists who are very pro-government be like, all right, now I see that both parties are garbage and this is really not working at all. Government is not helping anybody. So all of this trouble has gotten people to the point where they're now rejecting that and looking for their own solutions to things and embracing their sovereignty. And really, that's what the show Sovereign Lovestream is about. So we are so excited about this. I had something else to say, but I lost my train of thought now because I went off on that. But I think that's like a key to the positivity of it all, right? Oh, so I was saying I've seen so many people wake up that I don't think they can pass mandatory vaccines. They're going to try, but I don't think it's going to happen. As a matter of fact, I saw yesterday a post about a bill being introduced in New York State, and that bill has been introduced for years, and they can't get any sponsors. They still don't have any sponsors, even in the pandemic. So, and it was for mandatory vaccinations and some other, nonsense tyranny. So even in the pandemic, they're still not getting any co-sponsors for this ridiculous bill, but people are already getting wound up and upset about it. It's not something we need to worry about. And I'm not going to focus my energy on that and worry about that. I'm going to, like Vanessa said, I'll keep going. And if and when they impose mandatory vaccines, if it happens, I'll figure out, though, I'm sure there'll be people forging these vaccine passports, and we'll go underground or we'll do whatever we need to do. But I'm not going to worry about that and let that consume my life now. We're going to live life to the fullest. And that's what we did this year.
Yeah, we really did. As Taryn was saying before, like, this was the best year. And I think for a lot of people on this path, a lot of people who have gotten into healing, who have gotten into doing the shadow work and clearing out these old negative emotions, we experienced a fantastic year. I was telling my best friend, and she was laughing hysterically at the fact that I said, I thrived during quarantine. Like, this has been the best time of my life. There's less traffic. There are less people at the supermarket. I had a blast.
And you know what? That's her personality, because I'm not like that. I need a lot of socialization. So the pandemic was frustrating for me, being told I can't go out. So.
I completely understand that. And I mean, we did have a lot of opportunities to go out and eat outside, and now we're eating on the inside outsides. And
and you know what? The other people that are willing to go out during the pandemic, they're not people that are worried about masks and worried about all these things. So when we did have social interactions, it was with other people who are on the same vibe as us. And so they weren't all worried about COVID, and we didn't have to think about it. We could just be free to socialize. So, that's a little bit of another plus positive spin you can put on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we had a great opportunity to put a lot of our healing practices into practice. We went camping up in New Hampshire with a bunch of like-minded people on a similar path. We did an interview with Taryn and Stephanie of Light and Liberty Festival up in New Hampshire. And it's great to see so many people getting onto that path, looking to healing themselves. And I think that's a huge step. We definitely have the activists. We have the people that are fighting the government and fighting for liberty. But as we've said before, we can't be fully free if we haven't liberated ourselves from our traumas, from the things that are holding us back, from our own self-limiting beliefs. And I think that was really key to us thriving this year.
Yeah, no doubt. So thank you for everybody who is with us in living free, no matter what anybody says, because that's really what it is. It's mental slavery. If you are submitting to the government or even resisting the government, you're in mental slavery to that thing rather than just living free. But I feel like we're just going around in circles repeating now.
Yes. So now we're going to talk about setting goals for 2021.
Yeah.
All right. So how do we get started on that topic?
So for us, because 2020 was, like, a lot of people have been calling it a monastic year, where we all kind of involuntarily became monks and spent a lot of time home, spent a lot of time with our thoughts and dealing with our emotions. And hey, Miguel, hey, More. And we spent a lot of time dealing with those things. So it was like a great year to prepare for 2021, right? Like, that's kind of what we were doing. And really that's what life should be, right? We talked about how 2019, I did a lot of hard work to prepare me to be ready to deal with the frustration of 2020. And then being like in hibernation almost for most of 2020, I'm able to prepare now for the coming year of 2021. And we have big plans. We have big plans, all kinds of great stuff for our family. And so that's what we've been working on. We're working on having babies.
This was a great year for that.
This was a great year to work on having babies, and we're working on that, working very hard, very diligently on that. I'm opening a new real estate business. I've had a construction company for a bunch of years now, and I didn't want to go back into the real estate business because I felt like when I was in the real estate business, my priorities were totally askew. I was focused on money and partying and abusing my body. And so I kind of felt like, oh, if I go back to that, then I'm going to fall back into those old patterns. But now I'm confident with the progress that I've made and the work that I've done that those things no longer tempt me. And so now I'm going back into that. I no longer want to work hard. I want to work smart again. And my body's feeling the effects. I'm starting to get old, and my body's feeling the effects of swinging a hammer every day. And even though I feel like I did a good job balancing that, like I didn't work 5 days a week. Usually I would work like 3 or 4 days. And so I didn't overdo it. I called it my semi-retirement. I'm going to go back into real estate. So I'm opening a new company. That's part of our goals. And do you want to talk about our other exciting goal that we're looking to move forward with now?
I don't know. We have many.
We're looking to open a spiritual center. This is something that we've been talking about for years. And so what we want to do is have a place that, a bookstore, we can sell all kinds of different things, crystals, art. We want to have a big art gallery for local artists, and an event space to have meditation events and speakers and all kinds of things. We really want, because how do we deal with a pandemic? With community, or any tragedy, with community. So we want to have a place in our neighborhood, in our community. We're looking at a spot right across the street from us, so that we can pull in the people from this neighborhood that resonate with us and have the same goals and want to build community this way, so that we can have a strong community, so that we can be there for our other neighbors who maybe don't resonate on this level yet, and are still in the fear mindset, so that we can be here for them with a strong community where we can help people. Whether it's food or food drives, coach, whatever it is that the community
needs. And even
needs.
just emotional support.
Yep.
But also for the people that are in this area that don't have a place. We find ourselves in that situation a lot where we're like, we have to go pretty far to find like-minded people. It's really difficult. If we focus on what's on Facebook or what's on the internet, we're going to find all the people that we don't agree with. So it's all about, like Danny said, bringing in community, offering support, and creating this group of people with a similar mindset, similar goals, and pool our resources. I think
beacon of light. That's what we really want to create, is a beacon of light to the community. Kind of like what the church is supposed to be. But not a church, just a gathering space, a place for us all to come together. And I'm sure we'll do plenty of worshiping, and we'll have gratitude, but also art and all kinds of things, and exchanges of ideas and energy. And we're really excited about this idea. And it's something that we've wanted to do. And it's like in the last couple of days, it just like clicked, like, okay, it feels like now's the time to get started with this. So we're fleshing out these ideas, talking about goal setting as a couple. We're fleshing out these ideas. We've both kind of been doing it on our own, fleshing it out. But now we can come together, compare our notes. How do you envision this? How do you envision it? And then we can compare those notes and then take action steps.
And one of the things that I did want to bring up is a lot of us start to look at our goals in January. It's the new year. We're going to start going to the gym again. We're going to start eating healthy. We're going to start making all of these changes. And and it can become really overwhelming, especially in the winter. We've just come out of a big holiday season, and everybody deals with the stress of the holidays in different ways, and everybody's exhausted. And it's winter. It's winter. The sun isn't out as much anymore. It's a lot colder, especially here in New York. And it becomes a difficult time to try to get these things done. Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned this past year, especially, I really dove deep into my ancestral wisdom, my lineage, and kind of getting into, I took a lot of classes this year, which I think was pretty amazing. And I'm sure a lot of people did it as well. And the teachers just showed up for me. I laughed because it was one specific teacher that I saw the class and I signed up for it. I paid for it. And I was like, let me look up this teacher to see what she's about, because somebody shared the offering and I was like, yes, this sounds like it's for me. I signed up, and then I was like, let me find out who this woman is, because I've never even heard of her. And I went to her Instagram. We are completely on the same page, and I was so excited. And I was like, yes, the teachers show up when you're ready.
Yeah.
And so I really dove into my Aztec lineage, my Mixtec lineage, Toltec lineage, and a lot of what these ancient cultures believed is in aligning yourself with nature, aligning yourself with the cycles of nature. And what we do as a society is we do it all the opposite, right? We are, for those of us that live in cities, it's run 24/7, every day, every week, every month, all year long. And if you look at nature, what happens in the winter? Animals hibernate, the trees go dormant, everything just rests. This is a rest period. And so for us, this is the time of looking at our plants. We're allowing the seeds to germinate. We're allowing, the ideas to come to us, and we look at them and we're deciding, does this seem right to you? What do you think about this? And we're just kind of hibernating with these ideas. Come the springtime, where there's more energy flowing, where things are starting to bloom, that's when our ideas are going to start blooming, where our projects are going to start blooming as well. So if you're not ready to start, diving into the work, or not ready to start making the changes right now, don't feel upset about it. Just sit with those emotions, sit with the things that you want to change, and figure it out. Try it out. If you want to do yoga today and tomorrow you feel like, you know what, I just want to stay in bed tomorrow, I don't want to do anything, go for it. Just pay attention to what your body's telling you, to what your emotions are telling you. So many of us are running on empty fumes, or we used to run on empty fumes. I know that I used to work, I was working all year long. I was rushing to the city during rush hour traffic, and I would come home exhausted, and I was dealing with constant pain and fatigue, and it was overwhelming. And that's not the life that I want. As we were saying before, this whole forced quarantine created the opportunity for many people to work from home. And I think for a lot of people, that was fantastic. I hope people benefited from that. And for those that are missing the socialization, there are still ways that we can do that. Find your tribe, find your people, but, listen to your body, listen to what your emotions are telling you. A lot of us are so disconnected from that. And that's where the depression happens, right? A lot of people feel depressed during the winter. Why? Because we're forcing our bodies to do something that our bodies don't want to do. And this moment is where we want to just rest, go inward. It's time to, as Danny was saying, we're looking at our plans and our goals, and we're trying to see, are we on the same page about it? How does this feel? What do we envision? And as we work the kinks out, we're not rushing out to go make those decisions right now. We're just working out the kinks as we go, so that when we're ready to take those steps, we are, anchored into what we want. We've made the decisions, and we have a plan for it.
And I want to mention that this is not just like woo-woo. There's science behind this, right? It's funny, I laugh because so much of the stuff that Vanessa has learned and shared with me about the ancient Aztecs, and while I was in Hawaii, I met, we met an amazing brother who we're going to have on the show. And he's an indigenous Hawaiian, and he taught us a lot about the ancient indigenous Hawaiian practices, which are exactly the same as the ancient Aztec practices. Now, my plan for this winter is to research my ancient Italian and Celtic, Irish and Scottish indigenous practices, and I bet that it's going to match what I've learned about the Hawaiians and the Aztecs. And modern society kind of looks at these things as folksy and, oh, it's cute. And these people were coming up with weird ideas to try to explain, the sun coming up and all that. But what we're really finding is that quantum physics are just rediscovering what they all knew. Ancient Aztecs and Hawaiians absolutely had quantum physics down. And, we get a lot of energy from the sun. We may not even realize, but that's one of the reasons why our energy levels are lower during the winter. We don't get as much exposure to the sun. We don't have as much vitamin D. There's a lot of science behind this that if you take the time to look into it, you'll see that this is not just some kind of woo-woo spiritual nonsense or just belief. Although I will say that the belief has a huge part of it, because if you believe you can do something, you can. And if you don't, you won't even try. So the belief definitely plays a role. However, there is actual science to back this up. So definitely, if you're interested in the science aspect of it, dig into it. I generally tend to come from more, even though I do have strong faith, at the same time, I kind of want to make sure that the science is backing it up sometimes. And sometimes I will have a little bit of an attachment to that. But that's what I found.
Sometimes, because when we have conversations with other people, not everybody is open to these beliefs, right? And if we have something to back it up scientifically, that somebody else might say, okay, yeah, if science is saying it, then it must be true. So sometimes it is helpful. It is helpful to understand how things work, right? For me, for example, as I started getting into the Aztec culture and beliefs and ideas, I was learning a lot of the stuff. I did a women's health class from a Mexican indigenous perspective. And our teacher had a lot of information that was backed up by science. And there were many things that I had heard as a child from my own mother, on how to take care of myself, how to protect my womb, how to take care of myself during my moon time. And I didn't understand why my mom said those things. It was like, okay, that's just a Mexican story that, has been told from generation to generation. But the teacher had the science behind it and explained how, our organs work, why we need certain things. And it made a lot of sense. And I was like, okay, wow. Yeah, they probably knew this in ancient times. And as time moves on, we just hear the recommendation without the science behind it, without the explanation as to why we need to do certain things. So, I mean, it is a lot more helpful for me as a child. Hearing my mom say, don't walk around barefoot during your moon time was like, all right, what's the difference? It doesn't, does it matter? Does it, like, this lady's just crazy. I don't know what she's saying. And then to hear it and to hear that it matches with traditional Chinese medicine and the different traditions, ancient traditions, they already had this knowledge. They knew all of this information and they knew the science behind it, even if our parents just eventually, summed it up as don't walk around barefoot during this time,
Yeah. And now with modern science, we just have a fancier way to say the same things that they were already saying and they've been saying. So yeah.
So how do we support each other as a couple?
Well,
with our goals?
I mean, I think that the way we're able to do this now really comes from the fact that because we have done so much of this work of clearing out our childhood traumas and learning how to truly be empathetic, not just to act empathetic, because many people out on the street will act empathetic towards strangers that they don't know, right? So just out of politeness, but it's really more about embodying empathy, really putting yourself in your partner or whoever's shoes to be able to, this is like something that we talk about all the time, to really be able to understand what they're feeling rather than criticize or analyze or judge the thought processes they're having, right? So like it's amazing because it translates into everything. It affects all of our communication. And so now when she comes up with an idea, whereas maybe a couple of years ago, I don't think that, I may have not said, oh, that's a stupid idea, right? But because that would have been rude. So I may have been polite, but I also maybe wasn't excited about the idea, or I wasn't like, I just don't think it's a good idea, right? And I may have found a nice way to communicate that. But now I feel like there's more excitement because if I feel her excitement, oh my God, I have this great idea. We should do blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I feel her excitement. I empathize with it. And it's like contagious. The like positivity and the passion behind it is like contagious, right? Like, I feel like that's how we now like relate to each other. It's changed everything.
We're that connected now.
Yeah.
But as we were, as you were saying before, it's that healing work, because what happens is sometimes we come to each other with all of these shields, all of these masks, all of these defense mechanisms, and we don't allow ourselves to feel the other person because of that. As we are trying to protect ourselves, we don't want to get hurt. And for years, we loved each other, but we had all of these walls up to protect ourselves from getting hurt. And as we've done this healing work, we've kind of we've torn down a lot of those walls, where now we can come to each other and fully feel each other. We can feel each other's joy and excitement, sadness, pain, everything. And yes, sometimes that's painful, but the majority of the times it's exciting and fun. And yeah, you come to me with an exciting idea and I have the excitement as well. And I come to you with an exciting idea and you have the excitement as well.
And she used to be the type to where, she's a little bit more cautious. I'm a risk taker. So I'm like, let's open a spiritual retreat center or whatever. Like, I'm thinking big. And she's like, how are we going to do that? Right? Like that, like a couple of years ago, that would have been she would have been more reserved about it. And I would have felt that and then felt insulted that she was like, you know what I mean? Like, but that's all gone now.
Yeah.
Miguel's asking about what our diets look like. So Miguel, I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of the things that I'm sitting with right now in terms of my goal planning for 2021. I've done a lot of emotional and spiritual work over the last couple of years, but I've neglected my body. And I do not exercise. I do not have any physical practice. So right now I am sitting with what that is going to look like. And I'm actually working with a couple of different consultants on different types of physical practices. Somatic therapy and functional patterns is a type of physical practice that kind of gets back to the way our bodies are supposed to move. It's really a lot about posture. I haven't really looked at nutrition yet. That's kind of Vanessa's, area, but I think it's all tied together. And so we are in the process of doing that, because I've been getting guidance for at least 2 years that I needed to do this, but now I'm finally in a place after being in Hawaii. So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
You mentioned your classes with the Aztecs, and I want to talk a little bit about why I went to Hawaii. So I found this group called the Sacred Sons at sacredsons.com, and I took an online course with them that was so powerful. It was basically about Jungian archetypes and how understanding Jungian archetypes can understand your own defense mechanisms and how you respond to both positive and negative stimulus. So the course was phenomenal. I mean, it was so impactful. So they have a retreat in Hawaii. And so as soon as they announced the retreat, it was like right as I was finishing the course, I was like, I'm going. I signed up. It was like not even hesitation. And I cannot begin. We're going to do a whole show on this. I'm going to have the founding father of Sacred Sons come on, Adam Jackson, and talk about this, because this deserves a whole show. The impact that this retreat had on my life. It was 5 days with 10 other men. And it was a combination of doing shadow work, very, very internal work, but also men coming together with the agreement, just the agreement to be radically vulnerable with each other. And when I talk about radically vulnerable, I mean within 5 minutes of meeting these men, before the retreat even started, we all traveled and arrived the day before the retreat, and we had just met. And within 5 minutes, we were confiding things in each other, like deep, dark childhood traumas, abuse, and all kinds of things that, for the sake of confidentiality, I'm not going to talk about, but like deep stuff, like traumatic stuff, things that people go to therapy for years for. And we were already like, and that's all it is. It's just the agreement. Let's come together and drop all the masks, drop all the BS, and let's just be real. And I think in some ways it's helpful to do this with people you don't know, with strangers, to kind of help ease you into this. But then once you've experienced it with with people you don't know. I came home and started practicing these things with my brother and my dad. And it has already, within a few weeks, shifted our relationships in powerful ways. So I cannot recommend Sacred Sons enough for men. And they have a Sacred Sisters, sister group for women. So if you're a woman and you want to check that out. But like I said, we're going to do a whole show in the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to get Adam scheduled in because this is going to be really exciting stuff. And so then after the retreat, Vanessa came and met us, and we spent another week in Hawaii together, and we got married. And
yay, finally.
Finally. Honestly, it just all came together at the last minute. Literally, we decided to do it the day before. I had mentioned Kale before, my dear, dear brother. He's Indigenous Hawaiian, and we were out having
dinner, and somebody came by and said hi to him and was like, oh, I saw you at such and such event. And then he was like, so many people sometimes reach out to me and say, oh, I met you at this place. He's like, and I've met so many people that I can't always remember them. And he was like, I've married, I don't know if he said thousands of people or hundreds of people. Yeah. He goes, and sometimes they'll say like, oh, you married us. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Hi. Because he's done so many ceremonies that he obviously can't remember every single person. And so we had been talking about it. This was, Danny was really excited for us to meet because I have all of this Aztec, background, and he has his Indigenous Hawaiian background, and came together, and it was just like, oh my God, this, and oh my God, that. And we just went back and forth sharing all of this information and connecting on so many things. And then the next day, Danny was like, wouldn't it be awesome if Kale married us? And I was like, oh my God, I was thinking the same thing when I heard him say he had performed all of these marriage ceremonies.
So I texted him, and it all came together. And the next day we got married.
We were on the beach
in Hawaii. As a matter of fact, I want to share the video with you guys. I just finished editing it this morning, so I am going to do this. I was going to wait till it was like really fine tuned, but I want to share this. And we're getting to the close of our show here. So bear with me 1 second. Here, whoops. There we go. All right. Sorry, here we go. Whew. I love watching that video.
It was really great.
I love watching that.
So yes, we got married in Hawaii. Oh, with stones. Do you remember the name?
Labradorite.
Labradorite. Yes. Yeah, so that was how we closed out our 2020. And I mean, after that, who could say that 2020 was a terrible year, right? But it was just one of those things that kind of reminded us that things happen all in perfect timing, right? It was something that came together at the very last minute in a way that felt very true to us, very honoring everything that we had just learned and coming off of a huge period of healing. And it was interesting because we've been engaged for about 3 years now. And every time we talked about wedding planning, it was always overwhelming and we could never, figure out what we were going to do. And when it came time, it was like everything just fell right into place and it was perfect. We were extremely happy. The only sad part was that our families weren't there with us. But we had everybody's blessing and we were really excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I love watching that video. We were walking on air. I mean, we still are.
Yeah.
We're still like high off of that. It's beautiful. Maybe you can tell. But that gave us the energy to carry into 2021. And we're taking all that joy and all that happiness and we're putting it into our manifestation of having an amazing 2021 and building this community center and building our new businesses and
again, as we've said, because we've stripped away so much of the trauma, so much of the defense, so many of the defense mechanisms, we're in a place where we've been together for so many years and we're really extremely happy to be around each other. There have been all these stories about how quarantine life has forced couples to make the decision to get divorced or things like that. And for us, we became closer to each other. We became more vulnerable with each other. We enjoy spending time with each other all the time. And so it's really exciting to get to that place where we feel excited about sharing all of the things. And we're excited to share all of the things with you guys as well.
Yeah.
Somebody had asked about our decision to hyphenate our names.
Oh, yes. Right.
So do you want to...
I just felt like, for Vanessa to change her name to mine would be to maybe just symbolically, obviously she's not abandoning her heritage, but I felt it was important for her to keep her last name as symbolic of her keeping her lineage. And I said, if you're going to take my last name, I should take your last name as well. We're melding lineages here. Our children are going to be both Italian, Irish, and Mexican. So we should all carry the same names. So that's why we decided to do that. Yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, we've decided we're both equals in the relationship. Yeah. Oh, one of the things I wanted to talk about was something that happened, I guess, the day before we got married, which is when we went to the Labyrinth.
Okay.
So we found this place in Maui called the Sacred Garden, and they have 2 labyrinths there. And I came to know a little bit about labyrinths through working with my friend Carla. You can find her at Hindsight with Carla. And she does a lot of major healing work and is one of she's the most important person in my healing journey. She helped me to get to where I am now. And one of the first places she took me to, she took me on a magic carpet ride and took me to a garden in New Hampshire that had a labyrinth as well. And labyrinths are very symbolic. They were used in Christianity many, many years ago as well. Most cultures have used labyrinths in the past or continue to use labyrinths as tools for healing. And I read somewhere, and I was trying to find the exact quote, but I read somewhere that at one point, I don't remember during what particular time period when religious people couldn't do pilgrimage, they didn't have the ability to make pilgrimages. They would build labyrinths and use the labyrinths as a form of healing, as a form of doing a pilgrimage. And so you walk through the labyrinth and you go into the center. And as you walk in, you can release things. And as you walk out, you're embodying things, or you're setting intentions for yourself. And so we went to this garden and walked through the labyrinth. And I don't think we intentionally did it this way, but I walked into the labyrinth first, and Danny was walking behind me as we made our way to the center of the labyrinth. And when we got into the center, we both sat down and we had a sort of meditation together. And we talked about the things we had been through as a couple and the things that we were ready to embody as a couple because of the work that we had done. And as we started walking out, Danny ended up walking. Oh, there you go.
There's a picture of, this is not the actual labyrinth, but that's a picture of a labyrinth.
And so on the way out, Danny took he started walking out first, and I walked out behind him. And while we were having our marriage ceremony, that image came to mind. The fact that during this journey as a couple, there are going to be times that I may have to lead the way if he's not in a place to do so. And there will be other times where he's going to lead the way if I'm not in a place to do so. And then there will be times we'll be walking through life hand in hand as perfect equals, or, both leading the way. But this is an equal partnership, and the things that we both bring to the table are equally important and equally necessary. And so I believe the hyphenating of our last names is sort of a symbol of that equal partnership that we're bringing into this relationship.
Yep. Absolutely. Amen and amen.
So here we are at exactly the end of our show.
What a perfect show it was.
Yes. Thank you all so much for joining us. Stay tuned, because the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some really amazing guests. We're super, super excited for you guys to check these guys out. They bring so much information, so much love, so much beauty. I cannot stress enough. Check out sacredsons.com. These guys are doing amazing healing work, especially for men. I think that I wanted to mention this earlier when Danny was talking about it. We talk about healing work, and sometimes we see it as a feminine thing, right? A lot of women get into healing work, and there are women out there that are like, why isn't my partner emotionally intelligent? Why can't he understand? Why can't I talk to him? And this is why men's work is so, so important for a partnership. My work, myself, my own healing work was very helpful to our relationship. But if Danny hadn't stepped up and done his healing work and done the men's work that he's been doing over this past year, and very specifically this work that was done in Hawaii, our partnership wouldn't be what it is today. And it's so important. It's so beautiful to see so many men stepping up and doing their healing work and diving deep into their shadow work. It's beautiful, and it's very necessary, especially for the world that is being created in this moment. It's coming. The changes are here. We're seeing it, and it's only going to get better from now on.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I couldn't have said it better than that. And I was there and experienced it. Yeah. Sacred Sons has a saying, connection is the cure. Brotherhood is the medicine. And I really, really experienced that. It's not just a slogan. I really experienced that. Men that I just met would reflect things back to me about myself. Like, for instance, something like I would get triggered. Somebody would say something or be doing something and it would trigger me. But I could have compassion for them because we were meeting in vulnerability. I could have compassion for them. It would trigger me because it was something I didn't like about myself, right? That I see in somebody else. But I was able to have compassion for this other man with that same trait. And then was like, oh, so if I can have compassion for them, I can have compassion and patience for myself when I act that way. and it would strip away a layer of shame I have about myself, or I had about myself. Every one of those 10 men plus the facilitators, there were 5 or 6 facilitators, reflected something back to me in that week where it stripped away that thing. So like 17 layers of shame were stripped away from me, that at the end of that week, I literally felt like a different person. I loved myself in a deeper way that I didn't when I arrived there. It was that powerful. It changed me. And so check it out, because it will change you too. And it's not hard. It's really just like, it's like having 17 of the best friends you always wish you had, right? Like having a best friend that you could confide everything in and who never judges you and just reflects back love and patience to you. That's what it was like. And it's not always like that, right? Like we're going to have slip ups, but if the majority of your relationship, how beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? And now I'm applying that relationship, that template to my relationship with my brother. And it's the relationship with my brother that I've always wanted. And now I'm getting it. I'm developing it. It's happening all because of this retreat that I went on, and my willingness to do the work. You know, obviously if I went there and just didn't do the work, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference. But the container that these guys are setting, these facilitators are setting, is just so powerful. And brotherhood is the medicine and connection is the cure. So
we're excited to have them on the show, and give us a little bit more than this little snippet that we have for you guys.
We'll get into the nitty-gritty.
Danny's gonna
talk about social media.
Talk about our social media accounts.
All right. As always,
and go on his little rant.
Yeah. You know, as always, we talk about of course we're on all the big social media accounts, platforms, but you know, I don't know for how much longer, because they are banning people left and right. We broadcast on the Conscious Resistance Network, and last month YouTube decided to take it down, deleted 70,000 subscribers and hundreds of hours worth of videos and documentaries that we've created. So I don't know how much longer we'll be participating with these platforms. However, we are on other platforms like minds.com and Float. MeWe, we'll add those up for next week. Check these platforms out. These are anarchist platforms. And by that, that doesn't mean you have to be an anarchist. It just means that they resist government censorship. They resist corporatist like data mining. They're not stealing your information and selling it. They're not censoring your thoughts. They're not the thought police. It's just all freedom of expression, and support these networks. Find one that you really like. I really like these two because they have a lot of the same functionality that Facebook has. So you're not like losing any of like the cool features. But not that I wouldn't be willing to sacrifice the cool features, but with minds.com and Float app, you really don't have to. So check them out, and
let us know if you have any other suggestions that you think we should look into. We'll be more than happy to check them out also. Yeah,
for sure. Definitely. So thank you all for joining us on Sovereign Sunday. We appreciate it. We know that you could spend your time doing other things, but we appreciate that you decided to spend an hour with us. We love you guys.
Bye. Happy Sovereign Sunday and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Mm-hmm.